Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I sleep in a corner between Gate 42 and the food court, on a row of connected airport seats with the armrests removed using a 4mm hex key I pulled from a maintenance kit. The carpet is clean because I cut a rectangle from a storage room runner and laid it over the stained area in front of the window. I keep my pack under the seat behind me and a wheeled carry-on under the next row. My light at night is a flexible LED work strip soldered to a cigarette lighter plug and powered by a defibrillator battery from a Philips Heart Start unit. Those batteries are 12-volt lithium packs designed to sit unused for years, and they still hold enough charge to run a few watts of LED lighting for hours. I rotate between two packs and recharge them through a slow, careful method. A DC-DC charger made from a scavenged emergency lighting unit, a bridge rectifier, and a panel of small photovoltaic cells I pulled from the top of an airport parking kiosk. The cells sit in the skylight well above Gate 42 where the glass has not shattered. It is not efficient, but it is dependable when the sun is out. I am the only permanent resident of this terminal. At least that is what I thought until the food started showing up. Whoever leaves it places the items in the same spot near the TSA checkpoint, on the stainless steel table past the conveyor rollers. Sealed yogurt, an apple, a wrapped protein bar, a bottle of water with the cap still ring-sealed. The first time I thought I had missed a stash I hid from myself. The second time I thought it might be a trap. The third time I accepted that someone was leaving it on purpose. I moved a camera dome from a shuttered Hudson News and mounted it where it could see the checkpoint lane. There is no power to the security system anymore, so the camera is a decoy. I wired a motion switch inside it to ring a travel alarm in my pocket. If someone moves under the dome for more than 2 seconds, I get a chirp and a vibration. That is how I've been watching without showing that I am watching. The terminal itself is a city built in glass and metal. Water is easy here. The concession stands have back rooms with 3-compartment sinks and potable water lines. The mains pressure is gone, but the gravity header tanks on the roof still trickle after heavy fog, and I collect the drip in 5-gallon food-grade buckets with screw tops. I treat what I collect with chlorine tablets from the first aid kits and run it through a hand pump filter before drinking. Food comes from sealed items, airline snack boxes, peanut butter packs, instant oats, shelf-stable milk, crackers, energy gels. I keep a careful log of calories per day to stretch what I have. The freezers thawed over a year ago. I do not go into the walk-ins anymore because they smell like a broken promise. I sleep wearing earplugs and a headband radio at low volume. On the radio, I monitor 120 1.5 megahertz, the International Emergency Aviation frequency. Most days, it is just a carrier hiss and the occasional faint burst of static from a thunderstorm somewhere far away. I try to use airport systems the way they are intended, even if I only have fragments. The jet bridges are my barriers. The bridge at Gate 43 is a JBT Aerotech jetway, and if you pull the manual crank from the access panel, you can swing the cab and extend or retract slowly without power. I learned to rotate it so that the cab blocks a portion of the concourse and narrows the path from the gate area to a single person's width. I roll 2 belt stanchions across the narrowed choke point at night and loop their belts in a figure 8, tying them off with zip ties. The infected can push through, but the delay is enough for me to wake, move, and get to one of my fallback positions. I carved 3 fallback routes: the ramp stairwell behind Gate 40, the service corridor by the janitor's closet near the restrooms, and the kitchen door behind the sushi counter. I practiced getting from my sleeping area to each escape point at walking speed while carrying my essential kit. I do not run unless I have to. Running creates noise. Noise brings more infected. This morning started like most mornings. At 6:05 a.m. I woke without an alarm. I boiled water on a small butane camp stove that I keep inside a metal tray to contain heat. I ate oats, peanut butter, and a shelf-stable milk box. I checked the airfield through the thick glass. The runway lights have been dead for months. The taxiway signs are still there, their black letters faded to brown in the sun. A line of parked regional jets sits beyond the fence, windows fogged, tires half flat. Their anti-collision beacons stare like red glass marbles. The jet fuel farm is quiet. The field grass has grown up around the tie-downs, and when the wind comes from the south, I see the tops ripple like a shallow green lake. At 7:20 a.m., my pocket alarm vibrated. Motion at the checkpoint. I froze and pressed my back against the food court counter. I reached for the handheld airband radio I keep clipped to my belt. It is a Yaesu VXA 210, powered by an alkaline battery tray because the lithium pack died a year ago. I turned the volume down and held my breath. The alarm chirped a second time and then went still. I waited 3 minutes. Then I eased out and looked. On the conveyor table, 2 small apples, a sealed pack of almonds, a single-serve yogurt, and a note. The note was written on receipt paper with a felt-tip marker. Gate 42, we see your light. If you can read this, we are on Concourse C. We are friendly. We left extra today. If you leave a blue glove by the checkpoint belt, we'll know it's safe to talk. Noon. The letters were steady, not rushed. The word friendly was underlined once. The note had no name. Next to the note was a blue nitrile glove. The extra, I guessed, in case I did not have one. I did have a box in my first aid bin, but I picked up their glove and turned it in my hand. I looked toward the far end of the checkpoint where a metal shutter had been pulled down months ago. When you stare long enough, you can see movement in the reflections, even when nothing moves. I do not make fast decisions. I kept the food, placed the blue glove on the belt, and added a second glove beside it. I wrote my own note on the back of a duty-free receipt. Copy. Noon, I will be at the information desk. I will not be armed. If you are armed, please keep weapons low. I can help with power. I am not sick. I signed nothing. I carried the note to the table and weighted it with the almonds. Then I went to work. If I was going to meet other survivors, I wanted our exit lines clear and our choke points ready. I rotated the Gate 43 jet bridge to narrow the concourse and slid 2 pallet jacks into place behind the bridge's rear wheels to keep it from rolling. I wheeled a belt loader across the main corridor and angled it so its conveyor created another low barrier near the food court entrance. I ran a piece of orange nylon paracord from the sushi counter door to the handle of a mop bucket and passed it through a bell I took from the ticketing counter. If the door opened inward, the bell would chime. If the infected came from behind, I would hear the chime and the bucket would drag. I checked my pack. First aid kit, 2 tourniquets, gauze, tape, scissors, water purification tablets, a small UV water purifier headlamp, spare radio batteries, notepad marker, duct tape wrapped around a hotel keycard, 2 protein bars, a vacuum-sealed pack of rice, and a roll of orange flagging tape. I carried a small tool roll with a set of screwdrivers, a multi-bit driver, locking pliers, a 10mm combination wrench, a 4mm hex key, a razor blade, a meter of electrical wire, 2 crimp connectors, and a square of sandpaper. I had a compact pry bar and a 3-cell flashlight with a low-power setting. As for defense, I keep it simple and quiet. I carry a fiberglass hickory-handled tool originally designed to break vehicle glass in emergencies. I do not go looking for trouble, and I do not write about harm in detail. I avoid anything that could bring large numbers of infected to my position. At 11:40 a.m., I moved to the information desk with a clear sightline to the checkpoint. The desk faces the lanes, with a low counter and a back panel filled with useless brochures. I took a stool and sat so I could stand in one motion if needed. At 11:57 a.m., 3 figures appeared. They came from the far side of the checkpoint where the shutter meets the wall. The first figure was a woman in a high-visibility maintenance vest with a headlamp around her neck and a blue baseball cap with grease on the bill. The second was a man in a faded TSA uniform shirt with the sleeves rolled and a radio on his belt. The third was a younger woman in a gray hoodie and black pants with a small medical pouch slung crossbody. They moved slow, scanning left and right. The man and the younger woman carried improvised poles with D-ring straps on the ends, not raised, but ready. The older woman had a coiled safety lanyard clipped to her belt with keys on it. The man spotted the blue gloves on the belt and pointed. The woman in the vest raised a hand for him to hold. She stepped forward alone, keeping the counter between us and showing both hands. When she was 10 yards away, she stopped. "Information desk," she said. Her voice was steady. "We left the note. I'm Nora." "I'm Max," I said. "I've been staying by gate 42. "That tracks," she said. "We saw your LED light last night. Thank you for the glove. We keep our distance until we know people. Noon is a safe time. We watch the concourse from the service corridor and the mirror by the escalator." The man in the TSA shirt raised his hand halfway. "Raj," he said. "Supervisor once upon a time." The younger woman nodded. "Denise," she said. "I worked at Joe's Coffee by gate 47. EMT training before all this." "Ah," I nodded, keeping my hands visible. "Thank you for the food," I said. "I didn't know anyone else was still in here." Nora tapped her keys against her thigh. "Concourse C still has a few of us," she said. "We stick together. We leave food for anyone quiet and steady who doesn't draw the crowd. We saw you move the jet bridge yesterday. That was smart." Raj half smiled. "It's good to see someone who thinks about lines of travel," he said. "Most people rush and make sound. Sound brings them." I pointed at the note. "You said you're friendly. What do you need?" "Power," Nora said without hesitation. "We have a maintenance room with a diesel generator rated at 15 kilowatts, but the fuel line is clogged and the starter battery is weak. We also have a stack of sealed emergency light batteries and a portable GPU cart that used to power aircraft on the ground. If anyone can help us get a few circuits live, refrigeration, a handful of lights, a radio, that would change everything." I nodded again. "I can try," I said. "I've been keeping small loads alive with AED batteries and a DC-DC charger. If you have sealed lead-acid units, I can check them and try to parallel a few for a larger load. As for the diesel, I know enough to be careful. Where are you based?" "CN Maintenance," she said. "We use the service corridor. We stay away from the glass when the wind kicks up because the noise travels." Denise leaned in. "We were going to wait a few more days before talking," she said. "But yesterday we saw the fresh water setup you built by the burrito stand. That filter train is smart." "It's just 3 stages," I said. "Sediment, carbon, UV. The bulbs still work if you wire them in series and keep the draw low." Raj scanned the concourse. "We should not stand in the open like this," he said. "We've got a pattern that works for us. Either come now or we try again tomorrow, up to you." I looked down at my pack and then back at them. I'd planned to take days to decide. I changed that plan in a breath. "I'll go," I said. "Let me lock down my spot." I led them to gate 42. Nora nodded at the jet bridge and the pallets. Raj studied the belt loader angled at the corridor. Denise peered behind the sushi counter where I had the bell cord. I grabbed my pack, my tool roll, the radio, 2 extra batteries, and the sealed food I could carry. I left the rest in a storage closet under a false floor panel I fabricated from a plywood shelf. I wrote a note and taped it to the inside of the closet door. "If you are reading this, I found people. Please take what you need, stay quiet, Avoid the glass at night. We moved along the wall through the service corridor. Nora led, Raj watched our rear, and Denise kept her head on a swivel. We passed a line of mop sinks, a row of utility cabinets, and a metal door marked Baggage Level Access. Nora opened it with a key, and we descended a concrete stairwell into the baggage tunnel. The belt that once carried luggage to and from the carousels was still, black rubber coated with dust. We walked alongside the belt where there was space. Twice, Nora stopped to listen. Twice, we heard nothing but the click of our steps and the faint drips from a pipe seam overhead. The room they were using as a base was a maintenance shop with a roll-up door. Inside, there were tool chests, a workbench, a diesel generator with a sticker that read 15 kilowatt standby, and 2 stacks of sealed lead-acid batteries labeled 12 V18A for emergency lighting units. A portable ground power unit, the cart that once plugged into an aircraft to provide power at the gate, sat in the corner with its cable draped like a sleeping snake. There were pallets of bottled water, a shelf of packaged snacks, and, most importantly, 4 people. Calvin introduced himself first. He was in his 30s, lean, with grease under his fingernails, and a ball cap with the airport's logo. "Baggage tug operator," he said. "I can drive anything on the ramp. I can tow, push, block, and wedge. I know where the doors stick when the weather changes." Marta was older, hair pulled back, wearing a maintenance department sweatshirt. "Electrician," she said. "I handled terminal lighting systems for 22 years. I know every breaker run in this concourse. I was looking for a new apprentice before the world stopped. Congratulations, Max. You got the job." The 2 others were a father and teenage daughter who had been stranded at the terminal when flights were canceled. The father, Aaron, used to work in building maintenance. The daughter, Leah, could manage logistics with a clipboard and a pencil faster than most people could with a tablet. They had been with the group since their first week in the terminal and had a careful manner learned through a year of discipline. The meeting took less than 10 minutes to shift from names to tasks. When people know exactly what they need, there is no need for a speech. Nora pointed at the generator. "It cranks but doesn't catch," she said. "Diesel smells like varnish. We have filters and a few gallons of fresh fuel from a truck we found at the fire station." Marta tapped the sealed batteries. "Half of these still hold a charge," she said. "At least 12 read above 12 volts on a basic meter. We can make a 24-volt bank and step down to 12 for lights." Denise put a hand on the portable GPU. "We used it once to power an aircraft cabin light for morale," she said. "It ate our last battery charge. We haven't run it since." I felt the switch click in my head from survival alone to survival in a small team. "We start with triage," I said, and nobody argued. "We test and label every battery. We isolate the diesel and run a clear line from the fresh fuel to the pump. We change the fuel filter. We bleed the line and try to fire it for 30 seconds. If it catches, we run it under load for a short interval and then let it cool. Marta, if we get the generator up, what can we power without waking up the terminal?" "The maintenance room circuits, the back-of-house refrigerators if the compressors still turn, and a string of LED shop lights," she said. "We keep it off the public address and the signage. We do not touch the escalators or the big fans. We don't need that noise." Calvin rubbed his palms together. "If we can bring the beverage cooler online in the break room, I can give Leah an actual cold drink for the first time in months," he said. We worked for 2 hours, batteries first. We wrote on each with tape and a marker. 12.6 good, 11.9 borderline, dead. We grouped by voltage. We used 2 in parallel for Denise's medical cold pack cooler, and 4 in series for a 48-volt backbone to a buck converter Marta had salvaged from a solar display. We ran one LED light in the shop and one over the break room, then the diesel. The day the terminal went silent, I stopped thinking of engines as machines and started thinking of them as simple animals. They need air, fuel, oil, and a spark if gasoline or compression if diesel. They do not care what your plan is. They give you only what physics allows. We pulled the old fuel line and cracked the drain to let the varnish spill into a tray. We replaced the filter with a clean one, primed the line, and pushed fresh diesel through until no amber tint remained. We bled at the injector rail until we saw clear fuel. Then we checked the oil and the coolant and pulled the air filter. It was dusty but usable. When Nora turned the key, the starter struggled, then grabbed. The engine growled, coughed once, and smoothed into a steady idle. Marta watched the panel meters. The needle climbed toward acceptable voltage. We plugged in one LED light on a long cord. It glowed bright white, filling the room in a way no battery light had done for a year. No one cheered. We stood and watched the generator for 5 minutes, listening for a change in tone or a tremor. Then we shut it down, let it cool for 10, and started again. This time, Calvin rolled the beverage cooler forward, and we tried one outlet. The compressor clicked and hummed. Cold air drifted from the vent. Leah whispered, "It smells like a normal break room." Her voice made me aware of how quiet we had all been since the start. We drew a line after that and stopped. Noise discipline. We had a wall clock powered by a small battery. It read 2:40 p.m. We had done a lot in 2 hours. We divided tasks for the afternoon. Secure the corridor doors, test more batteries, inventory fuses and breakers, review the baggage tunnel exits, and mark the nearest fire doors with colored tape to show which ones opened easily and which ones needed 2 people. At 3:10 p.m., the first sign of trouble came from above, a faint sound through the concrete that was not wind. Nora put her palm on the wall and frowned. Calvin stepped into the corridor and listened to the air. Raj cupped a hand to his ear. The sound grew in seconds, then doubled, then became the unmistakable low-frequency murmur of many feet and many throats moving air. The only time you hear that sound in a terminal now is when a large group of infected moves as one body and resonates with the building itself. The infected are drawn by new sounds, bright light, and movement. We had been quiet, but even quiet work can carry through concrete. Or maybe someone else somewhere opened a door. Or maybe a wind gust banged an unsecured shutter. The reason does not matter when the crowd is already in motion. Raj looked at Nora. "How big?" he asked. "Hard to tell from here," she said. "But heavy." "Route options?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay level. 3, Nora said, not missing a beat. 1, hold in the maintenance shop and hope they pass. 2, move through the baggage tunnel to the CN service elevator and up 1 level to the loading dock. 3, get to airside and use a tug to relocate to the maintenance hangar. All have risks. If they mass near the checkpoint, the baggage tunnel might be the only path. Denise's hand tightened on her sling bag. "We can't be stuck in a room if the crowd finds the hallway," she said. "If they fill the corridor on both sides, there's nowhere to go." Marta was already flipping through a ring of keys. "If we choose the tunnel, we can cut under them," she said. "If we choose airside, we cross a lot of open space and signal with movement." Leah looked at the whiteboard where our morning plans were still written in neat lines. She erased the section labeled Lighting Map and wrote Evacuation. She drew 3 arrows and lettered them A, B, and C. We did not argue. Raj took a small radio from the shelf and handed out 3 more. "Our channel stays low," he said. "Click once to acknowledge, twice for help, long press for urgent. No chatter. Max, you take point with Nora. Calvin, you take the rear. Aaron and Leah between Marta and Denise. If we go airside, we will need your tug, Calvin. We have a MA-50 and a Harlan, he said. I know where the keys are. Decision, Nora said. I looked at the ceiling again. The sound had a pulse now, like a steady surf. It was moving, not standing. The baggage tunnel would give us cover. The airside run could expose us to view through the glass. Baggage tunnel first, I said. Airside only if the tunnel is blocked. No one objected. We grabbed what we could carry in one trip. First aid, tools, 2 battery packs labeled good, a coil of rope, food for a day, and water. We shut down the generator and closed the fuel valve. We left a note on the whiteboard for anyone who might find the room later. Moved through baggage tunnel toward C-end elevator. If blocked, we'll attempt airside tug to maintenance hangar. Denise dated it in big, clear numbers because dates anchor the mind. We stepped into the concrete corridor. Nora locked the maintenance room behind us and put the key on a lanyard around her neck. We moved single file. The tunnel has a hum when the building is alive. Now it is acoustically dry. Each footfall felt like an announcement. At the first turn, Nora lowered to a crouch and peered around the corner. She held up a hand. We waited. She waved us forward. We made it to the C-end elevator without incident. The elevator had no power, but the stairwell beside it led up to the loading dock. The dock's roll-up door had been half closed for months to keep wind-blown debris from piling into the corridor. Nora and Calvin moved to the door and put their shoulders under it. They lifted carefully and quietly until we had a gap tall enough to slide under. Raj went first, then Denise, then Aaron and Leah, then Marta. I waited until Nora slid through, then I went, then Calvin. We were in a covered loading bay, 1 level up from the tarmac. The far end opened to the ramp through a chain-link gate. The gate was padlocked and had barbed wire along the top. Through the gaps, we could see the apron, the jet bridges, and the glass wall of Concourse C. The sound was louder here, pushed and reflected by concrete. The crowd had entered the terminal from the land side, ticketing or baggage claim, and now was spreading. The movement had that characteristic pattern you recognize even from a distance. Heads level, shoulders rigid, arms making mechanical arcs. Through the glass we saw bodies press against the stanchions and the low counters. The small noise of a metal sign falling turned many heads at once. We counted an approximate number in silence. It was not a dozen. It was not a score. It was more than that. Calvin pointed to the corner where an access door led to the ramp. I can take the Harlan tug, he said. It's charged. I know a route around the far side of the terminal to the maintenance hangar. I can tow a baggage cart with supplies. We can ride on the cart if we take it slow. Raj shook his head. Open ramp, he said. Too visible. Not if we hug the building and stop at jetway pillars, Calvin said. The infected focus on movement inside. They will go to the glass, not the ramp. What about the crowd shifting and forcing out the emergency exit? Denise said. If that door opens and the alarm sounds, they will pour onto the ramp. The alarms died months ago, Marta said, but the door push bars still work. Nora traced the map with her finger. If we move now, we get a head start, she said. If we hesitate, the crowd might press out onto the ramp and we'll be trapped here. I looked at the gate. The padlock was standard, and I had a key for it. Nora's ring had every padlock key I'd ever seen in one place. Behind the gate, the ramp stretched wide and empty. The maintenance hangar was on the far side of the field near the de-icing pads. It was a long ride in the open, but there were columns and service bays for cover. The tug's top speed was low, and its motor tone would carry, but the terminal's glass would reflect most of it. We split, I said. Not people, attention. We pull the jet bridge at gate C45 to block the concourse further, then we use the public address in a short burst to draw the crowd towards that end. At the same time, we move on the ramp. The sound inside will be more interesting than a tug outside if we time it with the chime. Marta frowned. Public address is loud, she said. 5 seconds, I said. One chime, one recorded announcement, then silence. If we do it while we are moving, by the time the crowd refocuses, we are under the jet bridge shadow and halfway down the wall. Raj tilted his head. It's risky, he said, but it's a plan with specifics. Specifics are better than waiting. Nora took the key ring and opened the padlock. Marta and I will get to the PA panel at C45, she said. Denise, you stay with Aaron and Leah and keep them low on the cart. Raj, you ride beside the tug and watch for movement. Max, you ride up front with Calvin and call turns. If the crowd breaches a door behind us, we go faster. If the ramp is clear, we keep a steady pace and do not stop unless we must. We stage the carts. Calvin checked the tug's battery and nodded. He turned the key and the motor whirred. The sound was not loud, but in the quiet it felt like a banner. We loaded water, batteries, and 2 crates of tools. I took a position in the passenger spot with a hand on the metal dashboard. Raj walked on the tug's right rear quarter. Denise, Aaron, and Leah crouched on the cart behind us under a tarp. Nora and Marta slipped back through the door toward the concourse, keys in hand. We go on my count from the chime, Raj said into his radio. He kept the push-to-talk pressed lightly so the click would not carry. 1 beat and we're moving. We waited. The ramp felt like a stadium without spectators. Then the chime rang once, clear and bright through the glass, the same 3-tone that used to precede gate changes. A recorded voice began, "Attention passengers," then cut off. The panel went dead. Marta had kept her word. 5 seconds. No more. "Go," Raj said. Calvin eased the tug forward. We rolled under the overhang and hugged the wall. The tug's tone was a steady electric whine. The infected pressed toward the glass near C45, drawn by the sound and the chime. They flowed as a body in that direction, away from our position. We cleared the first jet bridge, then the second. Nora and Marta slipped out a service door ahead and waved from behind a pillar, then fell in behind us on foot, walking close to the wall until we reached the next service entrance. We passed ground equipment parked in haphazard angles, paused once for a clear path around a scissor lift, and then continued. At C51, an emergency exit had been opened sometime in the last months, and the door stood ajar. The push bar hung at an angle. The ramp just beyond the door was empty, but the door itself made my stomach tighten. An open door is a point of weakness. Raj motioned to Denise to keep the cart tight. We passed the door and kept going. Halfway to the corner, we saw movement at the edge of the apron. 2 figures crossing the open ground from the direction of the TSA checkpoint's landside side, one tall, one smaller. They were not infected. They moved deliberately, stopping to scan. They saw the tug and froze. The smaller one raised a hand. The taller one pointed back towards the terminal as if to say, "They are coming." Nora's voice came over the radio, low. "We saw them too," she said. 2 more survivors. They must have been hiding in ticketing. We can't take new people onto the cart if it tips us into a stampede. "Options?" Raj said. His voice had no judgment in it, just the word. "We can wave them to the service door at C53, I said. "We can put a pallet jack in the doorway and wedge a belt loader behind it. It'll make a temporary block while they get through." "Do it," Nora said. "Marta and I are at C53 now." Calvin angled the tug toward the C53 door. Nora swung the door open and held it with her body. Marta slid a pallet jack into position and set the brake. Raj waved the two figures in a tight arc with both arms and pointed at the door. The smaller figure started to run. The tall figure followed, holding the smaller one's shoulder as if to keep them from sprinting full speed and tripping. A glance through the glass showed the crowd shifting again at the far end as the initial chime interest wore off. They would distribute evenly soon. Then their eyes would pick us up. We were nearly at the corner. The maintenance hangar was a long straight run from there, with fewer glass lines and more concrete for cover. The two figures reached us, and Nora pivoted to let them pass into the service corridor. The smaller one, a teenager with a backpack and a bandana, ducked under Nora's arm. The taller one looked back at the concourse once, then followed. Raj pulled the pallet jack tight, and Marta dropped the belt loader's nose in front of the door. The loader's weight and a low profile created a barrier that swung like a gate when pushed, but resisted a full surge. "Welcome. Keep moving," Nora said to them through the crack. "Stay low." We did not wait for thanks or for questions. Calvin kept the tug at a steady pace. Once we cleared the terminal's shadow and turned toward the maintenance hangar. The wind came across the field and pushed our tarp. The tug's motor tone felt louder in the open. We passed a line of ground power boxes and a set of de-icing trucks. The hangar door stood tall and shut. The personnel door beside it was locked from inside. Nora jogged ahead with her ring of keys and found the one she needed on the second try. She opened the door and we rolled the cart inside onto smooth concrete. The space smelled like hydraulic oil and dust. A half-finished inspection checklist lay on a workbench next to a stack of fasteners and labeled bins. We got the tug inside and shut the door. The motor tone died. For a brief moment, the silence was complete and I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Then the distant low murmur returned, filtered by concrete. It was far enough to give us minutes, not seconds. "Roll down the small hangar doors," Nora said. "We keep a hand on the big door, but we don't open it unless we must. Calvin, block the personnel door with the wheel chock. Max, with me. Let's see what we have for power." The hangar's service panel was on the west wall. The main breaker handle was down. The emergency generator in this building was a different unit from the one in the maintenance room, larger, with an automatic transfer switch. Its display was dark. Marta opened the enclosure and pointed at the battery leads. "Dead," she said, "but the belts are good and the oil looks clean." "Fuel?" I asked. "Diesel day tank looks half," she said. "We can gravity feed to prime." We worked with our bodies and our minds in a simple loop. Assess, act, listen, reassess. We pulled the dead battery and substituted two of our best sealed units with jumper leads. We checked the filters. We cracked the fuel line and purged air. We pressed the start. The generator coughed once, coughed again, then spun to life. The transfer switch clunked and the workbench lights flickered on. The sound was deeper than the small unit in the maintenance room, but the hangar panels absorbed some of it. It was not subtle, but it was manageable. We lit 5 LED shop lights and 2 task lights over the bench. We turned on a portable ventilation fan at low speed to move air without creating a whine. We checked the refrigeration unit in the corner. It was empty, but the compressor turned. Leah set a small plastic tub inside with the bottled drinks we had brought. In an hour, they would be cool. After the day we had, cool felt like an actual plan, not a luxury. The 2 new survivors introduced themselves without prompting once we were inside, and the immediate tasks were done. The tall one was a woman named Julia, who had worked for an airline at the ticket counter. The teenager was her son, Marcus, who had been traveling to visit family when flights were canceled. They had been living in a storage area behind the baggage claim since the first month, moving rarely and speaking to no one. They had seen the crowd gather and then had seen our tug through the glass and taken the chance. "We moved because we heard a chime," Julia said. "We haven't heard that sound in months. Marcus said it meant someone was alive." "I said it meant someone was alive and planning," Marcus corrected with a quiet pride. "A random chime is one thing. A chime and movement is a plan." "You're both here now," Nora said. "You did well. We can talk more after we secure this place." That was when the radio clicked twice in quick succession. Denise's signal for help. We all froze for a fraction of a second as muscle memory and practice took over. "Say location," Raj said into his mic, voice clipped but calm. "C-53 service corridor," Denise said, short of breath. "The belt loader gate is holding, but they're pressing. We have to choose. Hold until they tire, or move out the back and risk the dock." Nora looked at me. "We can go back," she said. "We know the route." "Or we can pull them forward," I said, thinking through the map. "We can open the small hangar door on the far side and make noise there. If the infected shift toward the ramp in front of the hangar, pressure at C-53 might ease enough for them to slip to the baggage tunnel." "Noise brings them," Raj said. "We don't have the crowd in front of us. We want them to move like water, not pile against a door." "I can make controlled noise," I said. "Short bursts, not voice. Mechanical." "What do you have in mind?" Nora asked. "The emergency locator transmitter test tone," I said. "We can key the airband radio into a metal pipe in the hangar and let it resonate for 3 seconds. Every infected near the glass may turn towards the sound's origin. It's not a guarantee, but it might shift the line enough." Nora nodded. "Do it," she said. 3 seconds, then wait, then another 3. I took the radio, put it on 121.5 megahertz, and pressed the push to talk. I held it against a section of handrail that ran along the mezzanine. The metal carried the tone like a tuning fork. The sound was thin in the hangar, but we were not the target. I counted 3 and let go. I waited 10 seconds. I keyed again. 3 seconds, let go. "Pressure easing," Denise's voice came through. "They're looking left, we're moving." We waited without speaking. Every second an unwrapped wire. Then, "We're in the baggage tunnel," Denise said. The relief in her voice was a physical thing. "We're heading your way." We did not celebrate. We stacked crates against the small door, checked the fuel line on the generator again, and set water on the bench. When the maintenance room team reached us 20 minutes later, they came in low and fast, breathing hard but controlled. Nora swung the door shut behind them and slid the heavy latch into place. We took a head count. Everyone was inside. Nora, Raj, Denise, Calvin, Marta, Aaron, Leah, Julia, Marcus, and me. 10 people. 10 is a number that can work. 10 people can move a tug, lift a panel, carry a stretcher, hold a door, and maintain a schedule. The infected crowd did not disperse quickly. The sound of bodies and breath along the concourse's glass made a static wall of noise. We kept all lights off, facing the terminal, and used only task lights inside the hangar. We agreed on a quiet watch schedule. We placed the 2 best radios on the bench, one on the emergency frequency, one off. We made a sign on a clipboard for anyone who might approach. Knock 3 times. Wait, knock twice, step back. It is a rhythm we can recognize even in stress. The rest of the evening was logistics. We inventoried the hangar. Tools, fasteners, fluids, ladders, harnesses, protective equipment, battery chargers, extension cords, and ground power adapters. We found an aircraft auxiliary power unit test panel and a binder of maintenance manuals for the 2 common narrow-body types parked on the field. We are not going to fly anything, but an aircraft APU can provide electrical power and conditioned air if you understand the checklists and respect the limits. Nora knows the systems from her years in maintenance. I know enough to read a schematic and wire a safe temporary circuit. We set rules for the night in clear, ordinary language. No one leaves the hangar alone. No one opens the ramp door without 2 people ready with a block and a second person ready to relatch. No external lights. No voices above a normal conversation level. If the generator changes tone, whoever is closest looks at the gauges and calls out the reading. If the fuel level drops below a mark we made on the sight glass, we shut down for an hour and recalibrate, even if it is inconvenient. We eat in the break room in 2 shifts. We wash hands before touching shared food or water. We speak up if something smells off or acts wrong. We write down what we did on a board where everyone can see it. At 8:30 p.m., we made a meal that tasted like a plan. Rice, cooked on a camp stove in a metal pan, protein from packs of tuna, and a side of almonds and dried fruit. We drank water without rationing for the first time in months because we had a reliable treatment setup and a clear procedure for collecting more. When the refrigerator had cooled enough, Leah opened 2 bottles of water and handed one to Marcus. They touched bottles like people who remember how to mark a moment without making noise. After we ate, we held a short meeting. Not a vote, just a check-in. We sat on inverted buckets and low stools. Nora summarized the day in 2 sentences. Raj listed what had gone right and what had gone wrong. Denise described the crowd's behavior in a neutral tone. Marta proposed a morning plan to test the hangar's roof access and see if we can move a small photovoltaic panel up there to help with battery float. Calvin described how he would reposition the tug behind the tool chests so the motor noise would be muffled if we needed to move at night. Aaron offered to organize a shelf with the first aid gear in a standard order so anyone could grab what they needed by feel if the lights were out. Julia and Marcus were invited to speak last, and both did, briefly and clearly. They said thank you. They said they could help with cleaning, inventory, and any runs to the storage areas they knew. We closed with the decision that weighs more than people outside this life might guess: whether to try to bring anyone else out of the concourse into the hangar tonight. We had seen more survivors from a distance in the last 2 weeks. A shadow moving behind a blind-sided kiosk, a shape on a balcony, the glint of a bottle cap in a hand. Some of them leave food. Some of them watch and leave nothing. The crowd tonight had drawn to a herd by a chain of events that started with a simple test of a generator and a 5-second chime. The infected were still pressing against the glass at points, distracted by reflections and shifting in that swaying pattern that can last hours. If we opened doors now, we could turn 10 survivors into none. We wait, Nora said. We do not turn this into rescue for rescue's sake. We keep ourselves alive, and by doing that, we create the capacity to help more people later. We make a morning plan to approach the concourse from the baggage tunnel with caution and look for anyone who is trapped and can move quietly. If we can help without noise, we do. If not, we leave a message where someone calm can find it. I agreed, everyone did, which only happens when the sense of the plan is obvious. I took first watch from 9 p.m. to midnight with Raj. We sat by a high window with a view of the ramp and listened. We spoke in plain, few words about procedures, not feelings. It is not cold in the hangar, but it is cooler than the terminal, and the air feels cleaner. I do not say that to make it sound better than it is. It is just a measurable difference in airflow and particulate. The infected noise outside the glass gradually dropped after midnight. The wind shifted, and the building no longer transmitted the murmur like a drum. Sometimes, quiet is the only sign that things have changed. At midnight, I woke Calvin and Denise for the second watch. I wrote on the board what we had heard and what we had done. 2200, 2400. Exterior noise decreasing. Generator steady, fuel consumption acceptable, radios quiet. No external light use. Tug repositioned. I looked around the hangar once more and then lay on a mat in the corner with my pack under my head, old habit, and my radio at my side. Sleep came quick and simple. The best thing about being with other people is not the help they give you when work is heavy. It is knowing that if you wake with your heart pounding because a metal panel flexed in the wind, someone else will have heard it too and will say, "I heard it. It's the wind. The latch holds." I woke at 4:55 a.m., 5 minutes before my alarm. Old training. I checked the generator, checked the fuel, and then stepped up the mezzanine ladder to look through the tiny observation window. The ramp was empty. The glass of the concourse reflected the first light. A few shapes still leaned against the windows in the distance, but most had shifted and drifted back into the shadows. The yakking of a single bird on the roof sounded like a small celebration. At 6:10 a.m., after a quiet breakfast, we geared up. This time, we moved in 2 teams. Team 1, Nora, me, Raj. Team 2, Denise, Calvin, and Marta. The others, Aaron, Leah, Julia, and Marcus, stayed to maintain the hangar, watch the generator, and prepare water. We took radios, tools, and a laminated map that had once hung by a gate. We marked our routes with small squares of orange flagging tape stuck low, not fluttering, and we removed each square on our return so as not to leave a trail for anyone who would misuse it. We moved through the baggage tunnel again, slower this time, with eyes trained for movement and ears trained for the small tells. Breath where it should not be. A shift of grit. The soft tick of a cooling metal panel. We reached the C-end elevator landing and listened. The noise outside was not like yesterday. It was sporadic, like leftover weather. We slipped into the service corridor and approached the door near C-53. Raj peered through the narrow pane. 2 infected figures stood with their heads against the glass and their palms flat, still as mannequins between the short bursts of unfocused motion. The rest of the concourse near that door was empty. We waited 2 minutes. They did not move. Nora signaled a slow exhale. We moved back into the tunnel and took a different path to the edge of the baggage claim area. From below, we could see the back side of the carousels. Julia's storage nook was visible through a louvered panel. She had kept it neat. A note tacked to a pillar with a pushpin read, "We are okay. North hangar. Knock pattern 3, wait 2, leave cartons with caps sealed only." We added a second note underneath. Concourse C base relocated to North hangar. Water treatment at hangar. Safe approach via baggage tunnel only. We took 15 minutes to quietly leave sealed water bottles and a box of shelf-stable milk at the foot of a stairwell that leads to a staff hallway, a place where someone who reads signs could spot it, and someone who kicks doors would not notice it. We returned to the hangar the way we came, slow, patient, eyes up. By late morning, we had a routine. The generator ran for 2 hours, then rested for 1, then ran for 2 more. We rotated watch, we assigned tasks. Marta and I built a small fused distribution panel for the battery bank so we would not overload improvised circuits. Nora and Calvin did a walk-down of the airfield perimeter to find a quiet path to a fuel truck that still had a slow drip of diesel from the sump. Raj cataloged radios and battery trays and checked our handhelds for cracked seals. Denise organized the medical bins with labels in large block letters that you could read even when the light was bad. Aaron and Leah set up a clear line for water treatment with steps printed on a sheet and taped to the wall. Julia and Marcus cleaned the break room, wiping every surface until it felt like a place where people work, not hide. At noon, a short burst on the radio crackled. A call on 121.5 megahertz, brief and almost too weak to catch. 1 word. It sounded like help. It could have been a random carrier pop, It could have been a trick of static, or it could have been a person with an almost dead battery half a field away trying to press the transmit key long enough for someone to hear. We did not rush. We did not throw open the doors and run. We wrote down the time and the word and the direction of the antenna. We stepped onto the mezzanine and rotated the small Yagi antenna I had built from aluminum rods and a broom handle. We listened again. Nothing. We agreed to keep the radio on monitor and to log any signal. We agreed that if we heard a second call, we would triangulate with a handheld on the ramp, keeping low and not approach unless we had 2 clear escape routes identified and marked. At 2 p.m., we heard the second call. This time, it was clearer and carried a direction. Nora took the handheld to the ramp door with me at her shoulder. We stepped out just enough to avoid reflections and rotated the antenna. The signal came strongest when we pointed toward the far end of the field near the old General Aviation Terminal. The maintenance hangar's door added a slight echo that we accounted for by adjusting 10 degrees to the west. We returned inside and drew a line on the map. "Tomorrow morning," Nora said. "We go at first light when wind is low and shadows are long. We take the tug in 2 carts. We move from cover to cover. We do not answer on the radio yet. We listen. If the call continues and it is not a lure, we proceed. If we see any sign that the crowd is massing, we return. If we help with clarity and speed, not noise." We wrote the plan on the board. We checked each step with a finger. We set watches for the night. That night, after the first shift, I sat on the mezzanine alone for 10 minutes. Not to think about big ideas, just to look at the map in the steady light and note the things that can be measured. The generator load peaked when the refrigerator cycled. The fuel use was steady at the rate we had expected. The wind pushed from the north. The infected were less active along Concourse C than the day before. The note we left in baggage claim would either be read or not. The people who left food at the checkpoint had names now, and those names came with skills and tasks and plans. 10 people, 1 hangar, a tug, a quiet generator, a map with lines drawn in marker. You do not win anything here. You do not clear the field and raise a flag. You decide and make one part of the system a little less broken in a way that will not create a larger problem tomorrow. If you do that 100 times, you might call it a safe place for a week. If you do it 200 times, you might call it a plan. Day 800 ended with a small set of facts. We are not alone in the terminal. There were at least 2 more people when the day started. Now there are 4 more with us, and others somewhere watching. A herd of infected entered the concourse because of a chain of small events. We managed that entry with movement choices, controlled sound, and simple barriers that bought seconds when we needed them. We relocated from Gate 42 to the North Maintenance Hangar in a controlled way, carried our essentials, and left information for anyone who is careful enough to look in the right places. We brought up a generator without drawing a crowd we could not handle. We used that power for refrigeration, lights, a fan, and a radio, not for anything that speaks loudly to the empty city. We have a path to water that is clear, repeatable, and written on the wall. We have tasks that match skills. We have rules that make sense. We have a plan for the morning that depends on listening before moving. When I lay down that night between a rolling tool chest and a stack of crates, I kept the radio at my side, and I kept one hand on my pack. Old habits do not vanish when you add people. They just expand to include more voices on the radio and more lines on the board. The LED strip above the bench cast a thin light. I clicked it off and let the hangar settle. Tomorrow, we will follow the radio call toward the far terminal with the tug. Tomorrow, we might add one more small circle of safety or decide it is a lure and return. Either way, we will mark what we learned and adjust. The crowd will move again. The doors will flex in the wind. The glass will reflect our shadows if we stand too close. The difference now is that when my pocket alarm vibrates and the bell on the sushi door would have chimed, I will not be the only one awake. And when someone leaves food at a checkpoint table, we will know how to answer. We will not write friendly and hope. We will write where to knock, when to stop, and how to move from one safe place to the next with the least sound and the most care. We will not promise what we cannot deliver. We will use plain words and clear numbers. That is how people stay alive here. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.